It is a brilliant, sun-drenched afternoon in late spring, and your garden is finally bursting into a spectacular display of vibrant colour. You step outside to admire your absolute pride and joy, a row of magnificent pale pink roses and heavy, fragrant peonies that you have spent months carefully cultivating. But as you lean in to enjoy their delicate scent, your peaceful moment is violently interrupted by a loud, intimidating buzzing sound that resembles a miniature military bomber heavily approaching your face. Suddenly, a massive, metallic green insect crashes clumsily into the center of your most perfect rose, aggressively burying its head deep between the pristine petals. Your immediate instinct, fueled by a protective surge of adrenaline and years of gardening anxiety, is to fiercely grab the intruder and crush it under your heavy garden boot. Be completely honest with yourself for a moment about how you react to these sudden, uninvited guests in your carefully curated floral sanctuary.
Are you the type of passionate homeowner who demands absolute, photographic perfection from every single flower, willing to declare a ruthless chemical war against any creature that leaves a microscopic scratch on a petal? Do you instantly assume that every large, buzzing insect in your yard is a malicious pest sent specifically to mock your hard work and destroy your beautiful landscaping? If you have ever crushed a metallic green beetle simply because it dared to land on your favorite peony, I challenge you to defend your zero-tolerance gardening policy down in the comments. We have been conditioned to believe that human beings must violently micromanage every square inch of nature, treating minor cosmetic imperfections as massive agricultural tragedies. But before you reach for a bottle of toxic pesticide or shake that clumsy beetle onto the pavement, you must understand that your eyes are heavily deceiving you. This emerald-armored intruder is hiding a spectacular ecological secret, and destroying it might just be the most counterproductive mistake a dedicated gardener could ever possibly make.
You are about to discover the fascinating truth about why this metallic creature is so obsessively drawn to your lightest flowers, a truth that completely rewrites its reputation as a destructive pest. Furthermore, you will soon learn about a terrifying, alien-looking monster currently hiding deep in the shadows of your yard that is secretly manufacturing the most expensive, life-giving substance your plants desperately need. By the end of this journey, you will realize that what you thought was a garden invasion is actually a masterful, ancient, biological partnership that you are incredibly lucky to witness. If you have spent years feeling intense frustration every time you find a metallic green bug nestled in your roses, please know that you are certainly not alone in this reaction. Modern culture has relentlessly taught us to fear large insects, especially those that fly with erratic, unpredictable movements and wear bright, shimmering warning colors. We hastily label this specific insect as a rose chafer, immediately associating it with severe agricultural destruction, swarming plagues, and the total ruin of our carefully planned flower beds. We see the slightly bruised petals and the scattered pollen on the leaves, and we immediately conclude that a ravenous monster is actively trying to consume our beautiful garden alive. The truth, however, is far more complex and fascinating, requiring us to look past our human desire for pristine aesthetics and appreciate the actual mechanics of a living ecosystem. Let us take a much closer look at this magnificent, metallic creature currently scrambling around inside the blooming center of your favorite pale rose. The adult rose chafer is an absolute masterpiece of evolutionary design, boasting a wide, flat body that looks like it was carefully cast from solid, iridescent emerald and polished copper. When the sunlight strikes its hardened shell at the correct angle, the insect shimmers with spectacular flashes of gold and bronze, rivaling the beauty of the most expensive human jewelry. But despite this incredibly elegant, royal armor, the beetle is famously known for being one of the most incredibly clumsy and ungraceful flyers in the entire insect kingdom. It navigates the sky like an overloaded cargo plane, loudly bumping into branches, bouncing off wooden fences, and often crash landing upside down on your patio furniture. This hilariously awkward flight pattern is actually due to a very specific anatomical quirk that makes the rose chafer entirely unique among its heavily armored relatives. Unlike most flying beetles that must lift and hold their heavy outer wing covers completely open in order to fly, the rose chafer keeps its protective armor firmly closed. It slips its delicate, transparent flying wings out through small, specialized notches on the sides of its shell, allowing it to remain fully armored even while awkwardly hovering in the air. This brilliant adaptation protects its soft abdomen from hungry, mid-air predators like birds, but it severely limits its aerodynamic maneuverability, resulting in those loud, crashing landings. So when it slams into your flower, it is not aggressively trying to attack your plant. It is simply doing its absolute best to land safely without breaking its own legs. Once it finally manages to secure a clumsy foothold inside the flower, we must examine what the rose chafer is actually doing deep among the soft petals. The common, deeply ingrained myth is that these beetles are ravenous defoliators, aggressively chewing through the living tissue of your roses and destroying the plant from the inside out. In reality, the adult rose chafer possesses relatively weak mouthparts that are entirely unsuited for chewing tough leaves, stems, or the structural foundations of your beloved flowers. They are visiting your garden for one specific, highly nutritious reason, which is to gently sip the sweet nectar and consume small amounts of the protein-rich pollen hidden in the center. The minor, cosmetic damage you occasionally see on the petals is usually just the accidental result of their spiky, clumsy legs scrambling for traction on the delicate floral tissue. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, that is all very interesting, but why should I care if it just wants pollen when it is still messing up my perfect flowers? That is a completely fair and logical question, especially when you have invested significant time and money into making your landscaping look like a professional magazine cover. The answer lies in the incredible, accidental service this clumsy beetle provides in exchange for the tiny, microscopic amount of pollen it consumes during its chaotic visit. Because the rose chafer is so remarkably ungraceful and covered in tiny sensory hairs, it inadvertently becomes completely coated in sticky pollen as it aggressively wiggles around the bloom. When it finally takes off and crashes into another flower across the yard, it acts as a massive, heavy-duty pollinator, ensuring your garden continues to produce vibrant blooms and healthy seeds. But the story of the metallic adult sipping nectar is only a very small, temporary chapter in a much larger, darker, and significantly more important biological saga. To truly understand the immense, unmatched value of this insect, we must completely leave the bright, fragrant world of the blooming roses and travel to the most unglamorous corner of your property. We must venture to the damp, shadowy, decomposing heart of your garden, an area you likely ignore or approach with mild disgust, which is your backyard compost pile. It is here, buried deep beneath layers of rotting vegetable scraps, wet cardboard, and decaying autumn leaves, that the rose chafer reveals its ultimate, spectacular secret. This dark, forgotten mound of human waste is actually the primary headquarters for a highly advanced biological manufacturing facility that works tirelessly while you sleep. Imagine taking a garden fork and aggressively turning over a heavy layer of your dark, damp compost to help aerate the decomposing organic material. Suddenly, the dark soil falls away to expose several enormous, incredibly thick, pale white grubs with terrifying orange heads and powerful, visible mandibles. They are the size of a human thumb, curled tightly into a defensive letter shape, and they look like horrifying alien parasites straight out of a science fiction nightmare. Your primal, evolutionary instincts instantly scream at you that these massive, fleshy worms are the absolute ultimate threat to your garden, a hidden plague preparing to devour your plant roots. The immediate, overwhelming urge is to ruthlessly chop them in half with your shovel, throw them out into the hot sun to dry, or feed them directly to the nearest flock of chickens. If you have ever squished one of these giant white grubs in a moment of sheer panic, believing you are saving your lawn from total destruction, please take a deep breath. You are absolutely not alone, and your fear is based on a very common, very understandable case of mistaken biological identity that plagues millions of well-meaning gardeners every single year. You likely confuse these beneficial creatures with the highly destructive larvae of the Maybug or the Japanese beetle, which are notorious for aggressively eating the living, vital roots of your grass and vegetables. But the massive white grubs you find specifically inside your compost pile or heavily rotting leaf litter are entirely different creatures with a completely different, life-saving dietary mission. By destroying them, you are accidentally sabotaging the greatest natural resource your garden has ever possessed, violently shutting down a completely free fertilizer factory.
If this incredible realization about their true, beneficial identity has completely surprised you, consider subscribing to the channel so we can continue uncovering these vital natural secrets together. By joining our growing community, you help rewrite the deeply unfair narrative for nature's most misunderstood creatures, replacing our impulsive, destructive fears with profound scientific appreciation. We have spent far too much time fighting against the natural world, blindly destroying the very biological security systems that keep our local ecosystems functioning and healthy. By simply learning how to correctly identify the secret lives of these insects, you are taking a massive, highly impactful step toward becoming a master steward of your own backyard habitat. To fully appreciate the monumental importance of the rose chafer grub, we must closely examine its daily routine in the dark, sweltering depths of your compost bin. Unlike the destructive root-eating pests, these thick white grubs are highly specialized detritivores, meaning they have absolutely zero interest in consuming living, healthy plant tissue. Their powerful, intimidating orange jaws are strictly engineered to chew through tough, dead, and heavily decaying organic matter that would otherwise take many years to properly break down. They are the heavy-duty demolition crew of the natural world, systematically chewing their way through rotting wood, dead roots, discarded apple cores, and matted layers of suffocating autumn leaves. They work entirely in the dark, blind and completely vulnerable, transforming what you consider to be useless household garbage into an incredibly valuable, nutrient-dense biological resource. This underground process is not just a simple matter of a bug eating a dead leaf. It is an incredibly complex, highly efficient biological refinery operating at peak evolutionary performance. When the rose chafer grub consumes decaying matter, the material passes through a highly specialized digestive tract absolutely packed with unique, symbiotic bacteria and powerful microscopic enzymes. These internal microbes systematically break down the complex, rigid cellulose of the dead plant material, extracting every possible ounce of hidden energy and separating the essential chemical elements. What exits the grub on the other side is a perfectly balanced, biologically active substance known as humus, which is widely considered the absolute holy grail of organic gardening. This dark, crumbly, foul-smelling gold is rich in available nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, the exact elemental building blocks your delicate roses desperately need to survive the brutal summer heat. Human beings spend hundreds of millions of dollars every single year driving to gardening centers to purchase heavy plastic bags of synthetic, chemically manufactured fertilizers. We blindly pour these harsh, artificial chemicals onto our soil, attempting to force our plants to grow, completely unaware that these synthetic compounds often slowly destroy the natural microscopic life in the dirt. Meanwhile, a small army of clumsy, alien-looking white grubs is quietly offering to manufacture the absolute highest quality, naturally perfectly balanced fertilizer entirely for free, right in your own backyard. They ask for absolutely no monetary payment. They require zero electrical power to operate, and they never take a single day off from their vital, dirty, unappreciated work. The only thing they require from you is a steady supply of dead leaves, a dark place to hide,
and the basic human mercy of simply leaving them completely alone. The life of this dedicated subterranean worker is incredibly long and demanding, representing a massive biological investment in the overall health of your entire property. While the beautiful, shimmering, metallic adult beetle you see on your flowers only lives for a few fleeting weeks in the summer sun, the grub spends years laboring in the dark. A single rose chafer grub will spend 2 to 3 full years continuously eating, growing, and shedding its skin deep within the protective warmth of your compost pile. They endure freezing winter temperatures by burrowing deeply into the center of the decaying mass, utilizing the natural thermal heat generated by the rotting compost to keep their sluggish bodies alive. For nearly 1,000 days, they serve as the absolute ultimate guardians of soil fertility, slowly ensuring that the vital circle of life in your garden remains unbroken.
When the massive grub finally reaches the very end of its long, dedicated larval journey, it prepares for one of the most remarkable transformations in the entire animal kingdom. It completely stops eating the decaying matter and uses its powerful jaws to carefully gather small particles of surrounding soil, tiny wood chips, and its own biological waste. Secreting a specialized, highly sticky fluid from its body, the grub acts like a master mason, cementing these tiny particles together to build a perfectly smooth, completely hardened earthen cocoon around itself. This oval, dirt-covered tomb looks exactly like a small, unremarkable clod of earth, making it entirely invisible to any hungry predators digging through the compost pile. Inside this protective, silent vault, the fat white grub completely dissolves its own body, trusting its ancient genetic blueprints to rebuild it into something absolutely breathtaking. After several long weeks of absolute darkness and violent, microscopic cellular reconstruction, the earthen shell finally cracks open, and the fully formed adult rose chafer emerges into the world. It pushes its way up through the heavy, dark soil, shaking the dirt from its fresh, emerald-green armor, and climbs the nearest tall stem to reach the open air. It rests in the sunlight for several hours, allowing its delicate, transparent flying wings to pump full of fluid and its metallic shell to completely harden and cure. Then, with a loud, clumsy, intimidating buzz, it launches itself heavily into the summer sky, instinctively searching for the bright, fragrant blooms of your favorite garden roses. The spectacular biological cycle is completely finalized, connecting the dark, rotting decay of the compost pile directly to the stunning, fragrant beauty of the blossoming flowers above. This profound, hidden connection completely shatters the artificial boundaries we try to force upon our gardens when we obsessively categorize animals as either purely good or purely evil. The magnificent, perfect rose you proudly display in a crystal vase on your dining room table is absolutely, inextricably linked to the horrifying, alien white grub living in your rotting garbage. You cannot possibly have the breathtaking beauty of the flower without the tireless, disgusting, unseen labor of the decomposer working deep in the soil beneath it. When we aggressively spray toxic chemicals to kill the clumsy flying beetle, or when we ruthlessly chop the white grubs in half with our gardening tools, we are severing this ancient lifeline. We are violently attempting to separate the flower from the very biological engine that quietly provides it with the necessary energy to bloom season after season. We must completely abandon the highly unrealistic, toxic expectation that a healthy yard should look like a sterile, plastic living room devoid of all chaotic natural movement and decay. A garden that is completely free of buzzing insects, chewed petals, and decomposing matter is not a sign of masterful, elite landscaping. It is a glaring, tragic indicator of a collapsed ecosystem. If nothing is eating your pollen, and nothing is breaking down your dead leaves, it means your yard has become a silent, chemical desert that offers zero value to the natural world. The extremely minor, temporary cosmetic damage caused by a clumsy metallic beetle is a microscopic, completely irrelevant price to pay for the immense privilege of hosting a functioning piece of wild nature.
We must learn to fully embrace the beautiful, chaotic reality of a shared habitat, recognizing that true garden health is built entirely on the backs of unseen, unappreciated workers. This brings us directly back to those vital, open questions we deeply pondered when you first walked into your garden and saw that loud emerald intruder crashing into your prized flowers. We asked what spectacular secret this clumsy beetle was hiding, and what terrifying monster was actually holding the ultimate key to your garden's long-term survival and prosperity. The secret is that the buzzing metallic pest is an accidental, heavy-duty pollinator. And the horrifying monster in the compost is the elite manufacturer of your most valuable, nutrient-rich soil. By shifting our perspective just a few degrees, the villain of the story instantly transforms into the undisputed, hard-working hero of the backyard biological network.
The true mistake is believing that human beings can violently micromanage a complex biological web without causing massive, unforeseen ripple effects across the entire foundation of life. We are currently facing a terrifying global decline in overall insect populations, driven primarily by massive habitat loss, aggressive commercial agriculture, and the excessive, uneducated use of residential pesticides. Every single time a homeowner takes a deep breath, puts down the bug spray, and decides to let a clumsy metallic beetle peacefully enjoy a peony, they are striking a vital victory. Your backyard, no matter how small or heavily landscaped, is a critical, life-saving stepping stone in a vast, interconnected network of wild spaces that these fragile creatures desperately rely upon. You possess the incredible, godlike power to either be a destructive force of absolute chemical sterility or a generous, educated host who provides a safe harbor for the ancient mechanics of life. The choice between a silent, poisoned synthetic lawn and a thriving, balanced, natural sanctuary is made every single time you encounter the unknown in your own garden. The next time you step out into the warm spring air and hear that loud, intimidating, bomber-like buzzing approaching your favorite flower beds, please pause your natural, fearful instincts. Do not see a malicious, gluttonous pest that threatens the absolute cosmetic perfection of your blooming roses, but rather a temporary, honored guest performing a clumsy but vital service. When you turn your compost and uncover those massive, shocking white grubs, do not reach for your shovel in a blind panic to violently destroy them. Observe the intricate, beautiful details of their metallic armor, marvel at the sheer, tireless dedication of their underground labor, and appreciate the silent cleaning service they provide to your soil. Step back, leave the toxic chemicals locked away in the garage, and allow the quiet, beautiful machinery of the natural world to operate exactly as it was perfectly designed to do.